Hi, I'm Hunter with Bellamy House, and today we're going to be discussing the listing presentation. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced agent, you probably know that the listing presentation is the scariest and biggest hurdle that any agent needs to overcome. I remember when I got started, the idea of giving a listing presentation in a potential client's home was terrifying. Anyone with a real estate license knows that the pre licensing course and the test you need to take give you almost no knowledge and no preparation for how to actually sell and how to actually give a presentation. In this video, we're going to discuss everything that you need to gather, create, and learn, options for presentation materials, the content to cover, objection handlers and Q&A you can use, and the day of flow and the presentation itself. I'm also going to be doing some live demos of scripts. I'm going to do a mock-up of a listing presentation and some of the questions you might expect. And I'm going to show you how to explain some of the common things that you're probably concerned about, like the commission question and when sellers ask, what happens if my home doesn't sell? This video will probably be most helpful to brand new agents or experienced agents who have never refined their listing presentation. Head to bellamyhouse.com for more education, resources, templates, and coaching. Also at bellamyhouse.com, we have a full article version of this video in case you prefer to read rather than watch. We're keeping things simple in this video, so the first thing that you need to decide on when it comes to mastering the listing presentation is going to be your format. Now you have three options here. You have a digital, a physical, or a hybrid option for your presentation. The digital is pretty straightforward. I would recommend putting together a literal presentation with slides. You could use PowerPoint, you could use Canva. You have a lot of options for this. The format of this presentation, we're looking for clean, straightforward, and simple. It's meant to be as a guide. It's not meant for you to read off the page, to read them every single word, and to sit there for an hour giving this presentation. It's to help you along, to make sure that you hit all the important markers, and to help inspire your client to ask the questions that they are looking to ask. A quick overview of your next option for a presentation would be a physical format. So what I mean by this really boils down to a guidebook of some sort. Now, you can certainly use more of a loose interpretation, and by that I mean literally loose pages. I just personally find the guidebook to work really well. You could have them printed in bulk, you could print them yourselves. They work great as collateral to hand out at other events. If you meet someone looking to sell at an open house, it's really easy to hand them your guidebook. You can send it to your potential clients ahead of time, and then at the actual presentation, you can use it as a flip-through guide to make sure you hit everything you want to talk about. So pages that you want to make sure you have in your physical guidebook include a page about your brokerage, page about you, the process overview. Now this one is huge because this is going to make it so much easier to explain step by step what the listing process looks like and also show off your skills and your value. I highly recommend a what to expect page, and we have a whole article about this on bellamyhouse.com. Your third option for your presentation is what I personally use, and that's a hybrid approach. Again, there's a lot of different ways to do this. One of the systems that I really love for this is called Highnote. It was actually developed for agents, and it's a presentation software. So for instance, when I would have someone call me for a listing appointment, I would let them know that they're going to be receiving an email from Highnote. And when they open that, they'll have a digital copy of my guidebook. They might have some market update pages. They'll have a link to my video of my marketing and my sales record and quite a few other things in there. It lets me send this ahead of time, basically the minute that they call me, so they know that I am on it. Other great things you can do with a hybrid setup is you could incorporate a pre-listing package. So that's something that I also do. I have branded boxes, and we'll get more into this in another video. But I send these within 24 hours of booking the listing appointment. They have the guidebooks in there, contract examples, a few small gifts, and that will arrive at my potential client's house before I ever get there. The next thing you need to include in your listing presentation and your presentation materials is going to sound pretty obvious, but it's any relevant paperwork or disclosures. You want to bring a copy of the listing agreement. You want to bring a copy of the seller's disclosure, a blank one for your client to fill out. And then, of course, any state-specific disclosures that might be required. Other ones that you want to consider is a lot of brokerages have brokerage disclosures that they personally require. And then also, if the house was built in 1978 or before, you're going to need a lead paint disclosure. Now, this sounds a lot, and I highly recommend you sit down with your broker or your office manager and make sure that you have all of these ready to go. And it's also absolutely crucial that if you're a brand new agent, you need to sit down and learn this paperwork like the back of your hand. A good rule of thumb is if you could explain it to a third grader, then you know it well. Your goal at a listing appointment is to hopefully leave with this paperwork signed, but even if that's not the case and the seller's not ready to sign, you should have it there so they can take their time reviewing it. Nobody wants to feel rushed, nobody wants to feel pressured, and nobody should ever have to sign something that they don't fully understand. The next thing you need to consider when it comes to mastering your listing presentation is your personal tools. I don't care if you are a brand new agent. I don't care if you're more experienced. I got started in this business right out of college at 22, and believe me, it was very hard to be taken seriously. But at the end of the day, you are here to make an impression. You are capable and a trustworthy professional, so show up like one. So when I say your personal tools, essentially what I mean is obviously your presentation materials, that necessary paperwork in a nice folder, a market update and a starter CMA, which we'll get into in a second, a clean notebook for you to take notes in, a quality pen. We're getting a little into semantics here, but I really do think it's the little details that matter. So when it comes to this market update, what you need to understand is that you will be asked at this appointment, how's the market? So you need to be prepared to answer. Again, let's boil this down to something simple. There's two trains of thought here. So number one would be the hot sheet. You're preparing a literal sheet in advance with the market update. This can be the local market coming with inventory. Are there price reductions? How long are houses generally taking to sell? That's days on market. And you're just going to want to make sure that your sheet is updated. The other way of going about this would just be off the cuff. This might be easier for a little bit of an experienced agent who's used to answering this question. Are you capable of explaining the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market? And do you have a strong enough understanding of supply and demand that you can explain to your sellers which of these sides we're in right now and how we got there? If you can go ahead and answer those questions right now, then you're probably okay to use that method. Now, the other component of this is the starter CMA. So a CMA is a comparable market analysis. That's how we as agents price homes for our clients. Now, I hear a lot of new agents expect that they need to go to the appointment with this already done. I cannot recommend that any less. You cannot do an accurate CMA if you have not seen the house yet. You're not serving yourself or your seller because you're very likely to get that price wrong. And then if you have to backtrack, especially if you have to backtrack on a lower price, it is not going to look good. Personally, I am a fan of bringing essentially what is a hot sheet for the local market for that house and then working with that. So what I mean by that is go ahead on your MLS and look up all the houses in the general area that fit the basic criteria of this house. We're looking for a very wide range here, and you're going to just print out a whole bunch of properties. Bring that with you. Now, if your seller at the appointment is asking for comparables, you can pull that out, but you can explain to them that that is not the full CMA that they will be receiving from you. I debated leaving this next section out of the presentation, but I've been doing this long enough that I've seen a lot of agents make this mistake. So we're just going to talk really briefly about dress code and how you present yourself at these meetings. We're going to keep in mind here, right? You are building a brand for your business. Now, a brand doesn't just mean your logo and your color scheme. It means how you present yourself, what your clients think of when they think of you. So what message do you want to send? I hear a lot of stories about agents who think they need to go and buy a designer suit, that they have rented luxury cars to go and bring clients around in, anything to seem more well off, more high end, more expensive than they actually are. I don't believe in this whatsoever. I think you should dress and present yourself, of course, in a professional manner, but keep in mind who it is that you want to serve. I have served a lot of very high net worth, quote unquote, luxury clients, and I can actually tell you that the most of them drive normal cars. They don't dress in designer, and just looking at them walking down the street, you would never know that they are a very high net worth individual. I also serve a lot of first-time home buyers who I personally feel that if I showed up dressed to the nines in a crazy car, that they would be a little turned off by that. But again, it all boils down to how you want to present yourself and how you want your brand to come across and to grow. Really just the question to ask, and this comes to both your clothing and your actual presentation materials, is what style is both authentic to yourself and beneficial to growing your business and your brand? So on our list of what you need for your mastered listing presentation, the final thing we're going to talk about is a wow factor. This is the most complex thing that we're talking about today, and honestly, again, I almost didn't include it because this is supposed to be a simple starter listing presentation, but I don't believe in starting slow. I believe in setting big and ambitious but achievable goals. So I think putting in one wow factor is just going to set you up for the rest of your career. So, when it comes to this wow factor, there's a few things that I don't mean. So, one of them is being cautious about paying for extras. I have a lot of agents that say, oh, my extra, my wow factor is I'm going to clean every house. I'm going to pay for every house to be professionally cleaned before a listing. Now, that works great for a lot of agents, but that's not something that you have to do. And I'd be careful of setting yourself into a trap like that where now you are set to do that forever. I, for instance, don't offer that for my clients. I have paid for it on occasion when I felt that it was my responsibility to, or I felt like helping that client. I do, however, pay for a staging consultation. So it's really a give and take here on how it's going to work best with your business. I will link this article at bellamyhouse.com, but I'm a big fan of using a SWOT analysis to try to figure out what might work best for you. So again, with this wow factor, let's play to your strengths. What do you personally bring to the table that we can use in your presentation to set you apart? So let's go through a couple examples here, right? So first one would be, let's say your strength is you've got a solid sales history and you've got excellent marketing practices, you have testimonials, and you have skills and services to show off. A wow factor that you might want to use, and this is one that I use, would be getting a video brochure to include in your pre-listing package. So this is really simple. Let me show you mine. This is an unbranded version that I personally use because it was significantly cheaper than getting branded ones. And you upload a video that you can make yourself into it. And on mine, it plays basically a highlight reel of my career. It has marketing examples, areas that I cover, testimonials, services, all that sort of thing. Another example of this, so let's say that your strength is maybe you're lacking sales history, but you're very creative and you have strong marketing ability. Maybe you worked a previous job in marketing. You're going to show how you position their home visually. What you could even do is create a reusable template and at the listing appointment, ask if you can take photos, snap some photos, go home, put them into that template and send that right over. Another example of a strength, especially if you don't have much real estate sales experience, would be maybe you're a local expert. Maybe you are serving a really niche market, a neighborhood, a specific town that you know like the back of your hand. You can do local insights, show exactly what's selling in the neighborhood, exactly what's bringing buyers in there, what's the profile of buyers that are coming there, and show that all off for the seller. Moving on to the next idea behind how to master listing presentations is we're going to look at an actual listing presentation. So this would be a digital version. However, this would translate really well into a physical guidebook. And again, this is just going to be a simple, straightforward example. So in this example presentation, we're going to create the profile for a fake agent and a fake brokerage. We are Bellamy House, so our fake agent is going to be called Bella House. She's got a bachelor's degree in communications. She previously worked as an executive assistant. She's got fewer than 5 sales under her belt, so she's a very new agent. She's a dual state agent. Bella works at a large, nationally known brokerage, and her strengths are that she's highly organized, she has excellent attention to detail, and a strategic mindset. So again, if I was going to be using this digital approach, I'd probably send this over ahead of time with high notes so that the seller could look through it if they wanted to. Then when I got to the actual appointment, you could pull this out, either again as a presentation or guidebook form, and just flip through it quickly. So if we opened up to this page when I'm actually giving the presentation, I'd say something like, I just want to hit on some of my background for you. I am dual licensed, as you know, and my brokerage is Good Brokerage. I'm going to leave a copy of this with you if you want to take a look at any more of my experience or the testimonials I've got from past clients, and feel free to ask me any questions you might have. Really simple. You don't need to bore someone by going through every detail of your resume. If they care, they'll look it up on their own. This could be a page for this fake brokerage I've created. A lot of brokerages probably have some kind of presentation that you could just take from. They might even have one that you can copy and paste. So definitely look at that. Remember, if you're a new agent, your brokerage is going to have better name recognition than you do. So lean into that. The next thing that I'd advise you move into with this presentation is the process. This opens up so many doors for you when it comes to this appointment. You can start off by saying, how familiar are you with the selling process? For instance, they might say, we know nothing, tell us everything. Or they might say, yeah, we've sold a few times before and maybe we didn't have a good experience last time. Here's what the agent did that we didn't like. That's an in for you. And it's more information about how you can better serve that client as well. I recommend breaking down the process into some bite-sized chunks. For this presentation, I put it into 2 stages with 4 sort of markers in each stage. When you got to the end of this, you say, do you have any questions? Is there anything that I told you about this that didn't make sense or that you don't think would work well for you? And give them a chance again to ask questions, to talk, and to tell you what they're thinking. After this, I am a big proponent of moving into a strategy and showing off your skills and just essentially painting a picture of what it's going to be like to work with you. Remember our fake agent, Bella, she's great at communication. She's very organized, so we have that on here. And a really big one that I find personally non-negotiable is always professional vendors. If you go on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com or the MLS, I can guarantee that you will see a ton of listings with iPhone photos. I have seen everything. I've seen blurry shots, upside down, finger in it. I once saw a picture of a bathroom, the toilet seat was open, and there was pee in the toilet. Why? Why? As agents, we need to do better than that. So something that I personally highlight in my listing presentation when I work with buyers as well is I only use professional vendors. This is professional photography, videography, drone, whatever it is, only professional, and that's a non-negotiable to work with me. So you set this up the way that feels right for you, but personally, if you want to be a professional, run your own full-time real estate business, which is what this is, I think you need to set yourself apart. The next component of the presentation that I think it's important to have is a section for financial considerations. It's good to just touch on this and it helps you ease into that commission conversation. So for instance, something on here would be just having a quick mention of capital gains tax. If they're selling their home, there's a good chance they're going to have to pay taxes on the profits. This is just good information for your clients to have, and it's a good segue into the commission question. Now, very often sellers are going to ask you for help with their net sheet, right? They want to know, well, what are they actually going to be walking away from the sale with? So it'd be a great idea as a new agent to practice filling one of these out. But regardless, the seller's just looking for information on what they're going to actually walk away from the sale with out of pocket. So that's things like state transfer taxes, mortgage payoff, attorney fees, all that sort of thing. And that's really all you need for your presentation. Now, again, this presentation could be digital, it could be a guidebook. There's a lot more that you can do with this, especially keeping in mind that it's something you can send ahead of time or leave with your clients to review on their own terms. But this is just a really solid beginner presentation. So the next part of this video, we're going to talk about something that you're probably looking forward to, and that's some scripts and some objection handling when it comes to mastering the listing presentation. This can be really hard, and especially if you've never been on a listing presentation before, I'm sure you have no idea what to expect. So we're just going to run through a few of the questions and scenarios that you're very likely to encounter. Again, this isn't one size fits all. It's going to be what works best for you, but hopefully you'll get some good ideas and maybe a little more confidence. So one of the first big ones, obviously, is the commission question. So seller asking you, what do you charge? Will you discount your rate? Or even, this agent charges X amount, will you match that? How I would usually handle this, I would bring out the paperwork that I've brought with me, for example, the listing agreement, and we would begin to go through it. Now, when we're going through this, we're just hitting the highlights. Then when we reach the section on commission, I would say to the seller, tell me what you know about how commission works. This works really well because on one hand, you're giving them the opportunity to explain what they know, and they might have a really solid understanding of it, or they might not, and there's a chance for you to jump in. And then I usually go with something along the lines of, so first of all, there's no specific way that commission has to be handled. This is a negotiable term, and you as the seller and the owner of the house are always in the driver's seat. Now, what I see most common in the industry is when someone lists a house, they of course are paying their agent who's representing them, which in this case would be me, and they may also be offering commission to a buyer's agent. Now, this is essentially as an incentive. So I would go to the seller here and I would say, I charge 3% to list your home. Now, all of your marketing, all that photography, videography, drone, everything that we talked about before, I pay for out of pocket. You don't owe me a dime if the house doesn't sell, and I only get paid at closing. Then you can segue into, very often, buyers and their agents are expecting the seller to cover at least a portion of the buyer agency commission. There's a few different ways that we can handle this. One would be that you can offer a commission set up front. So for instance, we could advertise saying you're willing to pay 2% to a buyer agent. Another option would be you could say, I'm not willing to pay a buyer agent whatsoever. And another option you could say is, I'm not offering a specific compensation to buyer agents up front, but that they should include what they need in their offer and it will be considered as every other term. That last one is what I'm seeing the most often. Again, what's important here is that you're leaving those options open to the seller. For them now, they understand that they're paying you 3% or 2% or whatever it was. And there's this other option over here, a negotiable term about what ends up being the buyer agent compensation. Now, if somebody were to then ask me, well, I think that's too high, I met this other agent. For me, I would personally depend that on the situation, although it's very rare that I will discount my rate. Typically, if I'm discounting my rate, I've decided that ahead of time. So generally my answer might just be, I'm sorry, but at this time I'm not able to offer a discount. I know what my value is based on the services that I provide, and this is what I need to charge to be able to do that. So another thing that you're likely to encounter is questions about the price and especially pushback on the price. So a seller might say, of course, how much do you think my home is worth? And we touched on that earlier where I would just answer, I have an idea of a price range. I'm going to send you a fully in-depth CMA later today with my range. Now, this is a suggestion. You are always in the driver's seat, and if you disagree with it, I'm happy to have a conversation about it. They might also say, why is your suggested price lower than what I think it should be, right? Or another agent told me that they could get it higher, so why can't you get that price? I've had all of these happen before. So really the way I answer this question is the price that I'm presenting you is the price that I believe in based on my experience. Of course, our goal is going to be to get you as much as possible for this house. But I'm not a fan of me setting up a high expectation for you just because I want you to sign with me. This is the price that I most believe in, and you are absolutely free to list at this price or list at any other. Then you can breach the conversation of, depending on what that seller is looking to list at, how big is this gap? Could you say to them, if that's what you prefer to do, I would be happy to list at that number with you. And maybe we just keep in mind that if we don't have much action or interest, we consider doing a price drop relatively quickly. Another thing that I like to go into is talking about strategy, because strategy is really important in pricing. So I'll say to my seller, hey, I'm a really big fan of a strategic approach to this. Now, how this can often work is if we price on the higher end, we're likely going to have less people through the door and less interest because of that price. Therefore, it's more likely that we're going to end up with just a flat asking price offer or even under. Now, you have to think too, if we're dealing with under asking price offers, it's not just the price we have to worry about, but it's the terms. Now, this can absolutely work out, but I just want to caution you on that. On the other hand, if a strategic approach that would better suit them would be they need a quick sale and they need great terms, maybe we want to price lower. Because what that's likely to do is generate more interest, that's more people through the door, more eyes on the property, and very likely more buyers, more offers, and when you get more offers, that's how you get a bidding war. That, hey, if you want a bidding war, you don't get that by pricing at top dollar, right? You get that by pricing on the more reasonable side, getting as many people as possible to make an offer, and making sure that your agent is letting those buyers' agents know that you have multiple offers. That's what drives a bidding war, and that is how you get the best price and the best terms. So some other questions that you might expect, especially if you're a new agent, that can be really nerve-wracking, have to do with you personally. So I was asked these at the start of my career, and it's things like, how many homes have you sold? Have you sold in this neighborhood before? Why should I hire you over someone with more experience? I can tell you that I don't get asked that anymore, and I haven't been asked that for a really long time. And the reason for that is not because I go in there saying, I've sold 100 homes and I've sold this many in this neighborhood and this whatever, whatever. It's because I know what I'm talking about and I go in there as a confident professional, and it doesn't even cross people's minds to ask me that. The only time I was ever asked that was when I was a really new agent and I didn't know how to answer pretty basic questions. And when I did get that question as a new agent, as you very well might, take some time beforehand to know what you're going to say so you're not just floundering around. So for instance, you could say, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm quite new to the business, which is why I offer the commission that I do. However, my brokerage has a fantastic mentor program. I have a very experienced agent who I work with. They oversee everything that I do. So you're really getting a 2-for-1 deal here. That can be a good one, right? Again, if your brokerage has that mentor program to back that up. Why should I hire you over someone with more experience? Luckily, I have a fantastic brokerage backing me up. And I can tell you right now that I'm not overburdened with clients like a lot of my colleagues are. I have all the time in the world to commit to you, to your home, and to your process. Take some time ahead of this appointment to think through answers like that so you have something to pull on if they do end up asking it. So some other ones that you're likely to get from the seller, especially if someone's a little more nervous, are kind of logistical questions. So what happens if the home doesn't sell? How do you handle inspections, negotiations, and appraisal issues? And a big one, well, what do we do if the buyer asks for repairs or credits? Because we are not paying for repairs. I get that one all the time. The way I like to answer these, again, is going back to that strategic, kind of go with the flow, cross that bridge when we get there method, right? So to the first question, what happens if the home doesn't sell? I would say that's very unlikely to happen if we have proper pricing and good marketing, which with me, you're absolutely going to get. If it does end up happening, well, that's why I want to have a conversation with them about what is their goals and what's their timeline. That's something that you should work into the conversation so you can understand their motivations, right? So what is their situation? Do they have to sell this home? Because if so, we need a pricing strategy that's going to make sure it sells. Or are they just looking to sell, but if it doesn't sell, they'll try again next year? That's how you then lead into that conversation. Well, hey, you've got the time, right? You've got the energy. We can go for a little bit of a higher price. We can just relax, because if it doesn't work out, we can try again another time. It's always fluid, and you just have to let people know that they have lots of options. When you're sitting in that seller's seat, looking to trust someone to sell your biggest asset that you own, most likely, it's really nerve wracking and it can feel like you only have one or two options. Your job as their agent is to explain to them that they actually have all the options in the world. One of the other questions, how do you handle inspections, negotiations, appraisal? We don't want to make repairs, that sort of thing. Again, I just say, you don't know what kind of offer you're going to get. What if we end up with an offer that's way over asking price and the terms are amazing, they're fantastic, it's better than you could have hoped for, and then they have their home inspection and we find out that there's an issue with the house that nobody knew about and somebody's going to have to repair this. In that situation, if you're getting over asking price and it's a great deal, might you be more open to helping them with that? Generally, people are going to say yes to that. And then you can remind them too that, hey, when it comes to things like the inspection, you're in the driver's seat still. Really, the most important thing for you to keep in mind during this section is that the seller needs to know that they're in the driver's seat, that you are here as a guide, and that really at the end of the day, everything is negotiable. Part of showing yourself off as the professional that people want to work with is being able to calm and dissuade these fears. A lot of them are irrational, and a lot of them are rational, but someone just needs to know that they have someone in their corner, i.e., you, to back them up and help them make these decisions. The last thing we're going to talk about is the day of flow when it comes to the listing presentation. So, to back it up just a smidge, let's play out a scenario here. You've just got a call from a potential seller, you've spoken to them, you've set up a date for the meeting. First thing you're going to do now is go and set that appointment reminder. If you like to send them an invitation to it, that's totally fine, whatever works for you. Next thing you're going to do is go and send over part one. Now, whatever you've decided, right, whether you're going digital, hybrid, physical, there needs to be something that you're going to send over to them now. So step two on this, right, is begin your study and preparation. Go and look up their house, look up the basic facts about it, see if it's been listed recently. Just try to learn. You don't need to memorize everything, but make sure you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. There's a lot of different ways to actually structure the listing presentation when you go there in person. There's no one size fits all. And sometimes you'll go and the seller, the potential client, is looking at you to make the decisions. And other times you'll go and they just tell you exactly how it is. So it's just important to know that you're going to need to be flexible and ready for anything. But if you do have the chance to kind of structure things, here's my advice and here's how I always try to structure my listing appointments. When you first arrive at their house, you're just going to ask if there's a place that you guys can get set up, like the kitchen table or the living room, where you can put your items down, put your presentation materials down, and just sit and chat with them for a minute. I like to have a quick conversation, just maybe about their goals, their timeline, how they're feeling, and then ask if you can have a tour of the house. It's always a good idea to ask if they don't mind if you take notes during the tour, or if they don't mind if you snap some photos. Something I really like to ask as you're touring the house would be, hey, can you point out anything here that you think is extra special about the property, right? And let them know, you totally acknowledge that they are the experts on their house. They know this house better than you ever will. So let's hear about it. What's special? What's weird? What do they think is a selling feature? What do they think is not? This can also help you stand out from other agents who are just doing the basic, give me a quick tour, let's see what we see. After the tour, you can head back to where you've already chosen to sit and kind of get started on the presentation. Now, I really recommend a loose flow to this presentation, whether it's the digital guide or a literal guidebook. You do not want to be reading from this word for word. First of all, nobody wants to sit there and listen to you talk for an hour. And also, it's not very professional if you need to look at this guide. So make sure you've studied it beforehand. So an example of how the conversation can flow for you could open up your guidebook. Let me show you what mine looks like. This is one example of what my guidebook often looks like. I've had it printed in a lot of different ways. This is my cheapest way to print it, so this is one that I might use at open houses just to hand this out to people who aren't really potential clients who I'm not actually at an appointment on. But it lets you just flip through and start off wherever you want to start. So for instance, maybe you want to get started just with a brief overview of who you are. Highlight your experience in your brokerage, whatever that experience might be. From there, you can move into explaining the process and leave lots of room for Q&A. Let them tell you what they're thinking. Let them ask their questions, what's pressing on them. Just make sure that you're always guiding the conversation along. Make sure you cover your services and your marketing. We want to lead with that to show what's the value that they're actually going to be paying you for. And at some point, it can be a great idea to ask the question of how familiar are you with how commission works? Like I said earlier, I like to open up the actual agreement to do that, but you can do it at any time. It's a great segue into talking about that topic. From there, you could do a brief overview of the contracts and the disclosures. You can always ask if they're ready to sign with you today. And if not, say, no problem, I'm going to leave these here with you to review and I'll follow up with you later. And that's essentially it. Now, my advice would just be, If you say you're going to follow up or send something later, make sure you do it and make sure you do it as quickly as possible. Put your money where your mouth is. When it comes to answering questions, if somebody asks something you don't know, you don't need to say, I don't know. You can say, let me find that out for you. And like we just said, make sure you go find that out and get back to them. It's a professional answer and there's nothing wrong with it. And it's better than giving someone the wrong information. I can tell you too, especially if you're a new agent, you're going to put your foot in your mouth a whole lot. You're going to say ridiculous things. You're going to say things and then wonder if that's even true. Just do your best, right? Be honest and disclose what information you do know and what you don't know. And again, if you don't know it, go and find out and get back to them. If you have shown up as a professional, if you have put together a solid presentation, the chances are this person is not even going to question whether you know what you're doing or not. Make sure in the background that you're studying, that you're learning as much as you can, that you found yourself a great coach or a great mentor so that you can improve quickly and just be the best you can for your client. It's really easy, especially in sales, to do the sneaky thing. There's a lot of agents out there who do behave that way. It's why we don't have a great reputation. But if you lead with some truth and build some trust with your clients, it's going to serve you in your career forever. I hope this video was helpful. Head to bellamyhouse.com for more information, more resources, templates, products. We have everything from easy CRMs to mailers for agents. We have information for agents, entrepreneurs, and just high achievers. We are not solely a real estate-based company. Please comment, tell me what was helpful about this video and what else you'd like to know. I'd be happy to talk about it another time. Head to coaching.bellamyhouse.com to see how we can help you. Thank you so much for watching.